Hello, hello, I'm Kads, and welcome back to the free-to-play review. So today's topic is going to be the latest iteration of the Titan event, specifically the Faehammer Titan event featuring the perfect, or I guess split souls for Thor Faehammer, the most recent fusion. And I guess side note here, but I did manage to complete the Thor fusion, and we can check him out somewhere here in the collection. There you go. So Thor has been claimed on my account, so I did in fact do incomplete the fusion. So now the subsequent thing to do, of course, is the Titan event, where we can get all the way up to 5-star soul, which is pretty massive. 4 stars massive just for any damage dealer because you get the crit damage. I guess 2 stars notably for attack based champions is useful. 3 star for defense based champions. He is attack based, so 2 stars is a good milestone. 4 stars is a good milestone, and then 5 stars is also a decent milestone for getting the accuracy and resistance, because you probably do want to build him with some amount of accuracy depending on where you plan to use him on your account. But aside from the souls, we pretty much have a par for the course Titan event. So some gems along the way, some energy along the way, Plarium points, energy here, gems, etc. So pretty standard stuff. Immortal Soulstone here, a milestone 4, notably legendary tome as well. And then there's also a mythical tome and a primal shard. So pretty standard stuff. It's not like the Mithrala one, the Serpent Titan event, where there's a bunch of protection gear. There's no gear in this one, but there's pretty much the standard rewards that we have seen in the past for these. They've stuck with the precedent for these events, so the total amount of points being offered is 1750, with 1500 being required to get all the way out to the maximum reward, meaning that there is an inherent buffer of 250 points. But as I always say, these are what you make them. These Titan events are what you make them. So if you only want to go out for the 3-star soul, then you can skip a lot more than 250. If you want to go out for even milestone 4, you can skip 750 points, which could be potentially all of the summoning events, for example, or something like that. So it's a lot. There's a lot of flexibility with how you want to approach these. You know, if 5 stars seems too much, it is basically kind of a mini fusion in terms of difficulty. You get to pick and choose how far you're willing to go for any and all of these rewards in the Titan event. So the biggest question, of course, is it worth your resources to invest in this? Well, I would say absolutely yes. If you plan to use Thor in any specific location, it could be PvP and or PvE, just because 5-star soul, as we all know, is very, very powerful in terms of the stats that you can garner from it. But it's also worth noting that if you have a mythical champion, mythical skill tomes are extremely hard to come by, so it might be worth it to get out to here at least. But if you're going to get to 1450, you might as well get to 1500, right? Primal shard, in case you don't have your first mythical and you want to try your luck there. There's no sacred shard, unfortunately, in this particular set, but there is a void shard here. And of course, legendary tome for relatively low effort, comparatively speaking. So less than 1,000 just to get yourself a legendary tome for booking legendaries is always a good thing to do. Now, normally this is the part where I'd historically point out that there's always some sort of bonus summoning event for Titan events on top of the regular weekend occurring ones. And that is most certainly the case this time, but we're in luck because it's already actually live. So we can kind of see exactly how it is going to be this time around. And I will say this is most certainly the highest milestone to date in terms of getting Titan event points. So you can see here we have a lower node at 1,000, we have a medium node at 3,200, and then you have the upper node at 4,500. So a grand total of 9 sacreds. In terms of historical precedent, the highest that we had seen previously was 4,100. I can't remember whose Titan event that was exactly for. So we went from 8 sacreds to 9 sacreds, which could be a big deal for certain people, but in the grand scheme of things, that's a relatively small change. But nonetheless, it is higher, and it is important to acknowledge that. You can also go all the way out here to get the bonus fragments. If you plan to do this as part of the fusion, then you know these are the milestones. This is kind of where I predicted it, where about 6 sacreds, or give or take, would be the first milestone, and then the higher one is higher than I predicted. I thought it was going to be closer to the 4,500 mark, but I didn't know the Titan event was coming so soon. But yeah, 11 sacreds out there for the higher thing, which seems like a terrible deal, and in a vacuum it most certainly is. But this is not the only thing going on right now, because there is also a pogo event, or pull one get one for those who don't know. That's the term I like to use, a pogo event going on. So for the next 2 days, there is a chance to get to double legendary if you get a legendary at all from sacred shards, on top of there being a 10x for specific champions. In this case, they're the Faction Unity champions. If we could scroll down, there we go. So Faction Unity champions, this is the first day set. So we have Acelin the Starwart, Fina the Blade of Aravia, and then we have Falmond Mornsword. And then tomorrow, I forget exactly who, but it's like the Skinwalker one, there's the Lizardmen one, and Legate Teox, and then the one from the Ogren tribes. So all of that to say that basically right out of the gate, you can judge whether or not you want to actually pursue this Titan event, because we get to start off with the bonus summon rush. And so just keep that in mind. mind as far as your planning is concerned. You can most certainly skip the entirety of this summon rush because it is only 200 points, but you'd kind of be boxed in to do essentially everything else. So I don't necessarily recommend that. I would hope that you'd want to at least get maybe 100 points, about 6 sacreds or so, and a little bit of mystery shards. I think that would be a fair, like, partial investment. But for me, in my case, I'm most certainly going to try and go all the way out here to 4,500 because my particular strategy when it comes to Titan events is to get as many points as possible up front. That way, when it comes to the end and they start, because we don't know all the events that they're going to be offering, and so I can kind of coast near the end just because I invested more up front. But also, that is most certainly a luxury just due to the amount of resources that I personally have. Aside from the bonus summon rush, there's also an artifact enhancer starting tomorrow, which is going to be pretty par for the course. I would expect that the Titan event points would be somewhere around the normal fusion amount, so around 47.75. That's pretty expected. And then for the tournaments, it's actually going to be the Odin's Trial tournament. So it's not one of the standard core dungeons. It's actually the new or temporary event dungeon. And so you will have to be completing this in order to get yourself some Titan event points. But it's fairly accessible, I would say, over the course of 3 days. You have 100 points, 100 points up for grabs just for getting out to 2650, which is most certainly doable for most people because there's nothing else going on right now that requires your energy. So I'd definitely invest in doing this. And I would recommend doing stage 20 just because it's the most efficient stage in terms of getting points for tournaments and stuff like that. But if you have a team and you're willing to spend the extra energy to do stage 30, then most certainly you can do that. And I actually did a video recently showcasing a couple of teams that you could use for stage 20 as well as my team that I'm using for stage 30. So you can check that video out in the card above if that is of your interest. The last thing that I'll mention is, of course, that we'll be taking a snapshot of my supply count here at the start of the Titan event because I always like to share with you guys as much as possible how much resources it actually costs to do these types of things, because a lot of people will always say it's impossible, you can't do it, even as a free-to-play player. And most certainly there is a perk to being in the end game that allows it to be so easy, typically for me, but nonetheless I think it's a lot more attainable than a lot of people give it credit for. But I digress. So we're benchmarking here about 80 million on the silver, which of course is going to be sapped a little bit once artifact enhancement starts tomorrow. And then we have just over 3,000 on the gems, which will probably be used for some sort of dungeon diver shenanigans in the future. In a couple of weeks, once I conclude the Titan event, I will post on my community tab a summary of all the supplies that I used in terms of silver, gems, and shards in order to acquire all the way out to the 5-star soul. So yeah, that's going to do it for the free-to-play review of the Faehammer Titan event. For those who are curious, I do still currently plan on going for Frey as well. I do have enough shards to do this event as well as anything else that they might throw at us in the near term. And for this bonus summon rush, I do plan to pull at least 9 sacreds. Hopefully that's enough to trigger the Pogo event, and then obviously that would guarantee the maximum amount of Titan event points. As I noted in my last shard pull video, I'm now 3 sacreds into Mercy, so the odds are decent, but most certainly not guaranteed that we will get a legendary in the first 9 pulls. So stay tuned for that video coming out tomorrow, because of course I am waiting for the second set of faction unity champions before pulling my shards. Let me know in the comment section down below what your plan is for the Faehammer Titan event. I do recommend at least going out to milestone 3 just to get a fairly decent level of his soul, but of course that might not be for everyone, so let me know how far you plan to go. As always, if you did find this video helpful, then be sure to hit that like button down below. It really does help out the channel, and if you enjoyed the content, then feel free to subscribe to the channel for more content just like this one in the future. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.